Welcome to the New York State Department of Health's webinar concerning the Prescription Monitoring Program, or PMP. Our objectives are to provide a background on the New York State PMP, identify authorized users, review procedures for consulting the PMP, present interstate data sharing, and review reporting and data collection. So what is a prescription monitoring program? A PMP is a statewide electronic database which collects data on specific substances dispensed to patients. The information is available to be seen by certain individuals who are authorized under state law to view the confidential patient information. In New York State, the PMP is maintained in the Bureau of Narcotic Enforcement, or BNE, within the New York State Department of Health. It is important to note that the New York State Prescription Monitoring Program is guided by statute. With the PMP, which is sometimes referred to as iStop, the patient data that is displayed comes from dispensing practitioners and controlled substance prescription dispensing information from pharmacies. Accurate data entry is a must. The PMP displays 1 year of patient data, and the data is visible within 24 hours after the data is submitted. The PMP is a useful tool for healthcare practitioners to better evaluate a patient's controlled substance treatment, determine whether there may be misuse or non-legitimate use of controlled substances, and reduce diversion by helping to identify individuals who may have multiple provider or pharmacy episodes. PMP background. The Bureau has been collecting controlled substance information since 1972. In June 2005, BNE started collecting all controlled substance data in Schedules 2 through 5. Previous to 2005, only Schedule 2 controlled substance information was collected. The first version of the online PMP was launched in February 2010. The Prescription Drug Reform Act, Chapter 447 of the New York State Laws of 2012, was a multi-pronged legislation aimed at addressing the opioid epidemic. The law became effective on August 27, 2013. It mandated practitioners to consult the PMP before writing a controlled substance prescription in Schedules 2, 3, or 4. Pharmacies have to report controlled substance prescription data within 24 hours of dispensing. It also required the Department of Health to update the PMP, and a faster, user-friendly online version with more current prescription data was launched. The Drug Reform Act also included updating schedules, electronic prescribing, establishment of a pain medication awareness work group, and a safe disposal program to help combat the opioid crisis. Consulting the PMP registry. Approved users of the PMP. New York State public health law is very clear on who can have access to the PMP data. Practitioners with the authority to prescribe controlled substances to humans and their designees are allowed direct access to the PMP. This includes practitioners such as physicians, nurse practitioners, physician assistants, midwives, podiatrists, and dentists. We will speak more about assigning practitioner designees later in the presentation. Veterinarians do not have access. Pharmacists can access the PMP to search a patient's confidential drug utilization report when they have been presented a controlled substance prescription for filling. A pharmacist can designate another pharmacist or a pharmacy intern to search the PMP on their behalf. PMP data is also reviewed by BNE investigators for signs of potential misuse and diversion. Mandated duty to consult. Practitioners who prescribe controlled substances need to obtain a Health Commerce System, or HCS, account, which provides them with secure online access to their patient's recent controlled substance prescription history. We'll look closer at the Health Commerce System later in the presentation. Practitioners must consult the registry, in most cases, prior to prescribing or dispensing any controlled substance listed in Schedules 2, 3, or 4. This consultation must occur no more than 24 hours before the prescription is issued. We also recommend that practitioners consult the registry for Schedule 5 medications. Practitioners do not need to include a reference that they checked the PMP on the prescription, but they do need to notate in the patient's chart that they checked the PMP. Pharmacists are not mandated to consult the PMP registry when filling a controlled substance prescription, but are encouraged to do so. Also, pharmacists are prohibited from providing a PMP report upon request to any law enforcement official. There is a mechanism for law enforcement to obtain this data from the Bureau of Narcotic Enforcement. It is unlawful for a pharmacist to provide this to any law enforcement agent, including a DEA agent or BNE investigator. Keep in mind, a person's controlled substance history must only be searched by a prescriber or designee for a patient they are treating, or a pharmacist or designee for a prescription they are filling. It is very important not to use the PMP to check on celebrities, sports or political figures, neighbors, relatives, or for employment screening, medication reconciliation purposes, or drug utilization review. This is an especially important point for patient confidentiality. In addition, BNE tracks all searches and maintains a confidential log of who accessed what data and when. The following are exceptions for the duty to consult. Veterinarians are not required to consult the PMP and, in fact, do not have access to view the PMP. Another exception is methadone, when it is dispensed or administered as an interim treatment for a person with substance use disorder who is on a waiting list for admission to a maintenance treatment program. When a practitioner administers a controlled substance, it is not necessary to consult the registry, but it is still an option to do so. Administration within an institutional dispenser, including nursing homes and hospitals. However, if a nursing home patient is going home, even if it's a temporary leave pass, and a prescription is written to be filled outside the facility, the PMP must be checked. ED attached to a general hospital, limited to a 5-day supply. Emergency rooms or acute care facilities that are standalones must check the PMP. This exception is only if the ED is attached to a general hospital. Hospice, temporary technological or electrical issues. Examples would be if the PMP is down or if the practitioner's server or computer fails. Additional exceptions are a practitioner who has received a waiver. The practitioner determines the patient's inability to obtain the prescription in a timely manner would adversely impact the medical condition of the patient. Note, here the quantity shall not exceed a 5-day supply. Also, when a practitioner, 1, finds it is not reasonably possible to access the PMP, 2, that no other practitioner or designee may access for the practitioner, and 3, the quantity prescribed is 5 days or less. All 3 elements must be satisfied. Merely writing a 5-day prescription does not relieve a practitioner from having to check the PMP. This has been misunderstood. Practitioners have mistakenly believed that they don't have to check the PMP if they are only going to write a 5-day supply. In addition to prescribing a 5-day supply, it must not be reasonably possible for the practitioner to access the PMP and no one else is available to access it for them. This is how the statute reads, and all of these elements must be satisfied. How to access the PMP. In order to access the PMP, it is necessary to create an account with the New York State Department of Health's Health Commerce System, or HCS. Shown here are links on how to obtain an HCS account, as well as additional information for using HCS. An account can be obtained using an easy online process with a New York driver's license or non-driver photo ID. The system will provide instructions for individuals that do not have a New York driver's license or non-driver photo ID. To obtain an account, navigate to the HCS login screen, select Sign Up Here, and follow the instructions provided. Once you have established an account, it is important to set up password retrieval. Passwords expire every 180 days. The first time you sign into your own HCS account, you will see the screen displayed here. click My Content, click Change My Contact Information, click the Professional Information tab, and provide your New York State Education Department license number. To perform a patient search, click on the NYS PMP logo, or open My Content at the top, then choose All Applications. Choose the letter P at the top of the page, and then select the Prescription Monitoring Program Registry link. Here you can add the PMP registry or other additional application favorites to your HCS landing page by clicking on the plus sign on the far right. Now the PMP registry link will appear in My Applications whenever you enter HCS. This is the patient search landing page. There is a red circle around the Search Results help. This will guide a PMP user on how to read a patient's confidential drug utilization report. There's also a Help button and a Frequently Asked Questions button. Above the patient search bar, you can see Patient Search, Multi-Patient Search, where you can list up to 30 patients, as well as MME Calculator, Reports, Drug Listings, Designation, and for prescribers, a My DEA Number tab. Instructions for doing a patient search are at the bottom of the page. After entering the first name, last name, and date of birth of the patient you are searching for, there is an attestation. By clicking the Yes button, you are attesting that you are searching the individual's PMP record in accordance with the New York State Public Health Law. To review the contents of the attestation, there is a link below the Yes button that says Click Here. The attestation states that only licensed practitioners or pharmacists who are authorized to prescribe or dispense and their designees are permitted to request and view this confidential information, and only in relation to the treatment and/or prescription of a patient or customer. The use of this registry by unauthorized persons or for unauthorized purposes is strictly prohibited. The PMP user also agrees to undertake adequate safeguards to secure the confidential prescription information from inappropriate disclosures. This screen gives you a chance to make sure that the correct patient name and date of birth is displayed. If the displayed information is not correct, you can click on Revise Search Terms and re-enter the search parameters. Hitting Continue will bring you to the patient's confidential drug utilization report. On this report, our fictitious person sample patient has multiple patient demographic information, or PDI, entries. The PMP does not collect a unique identifier, so by design it may give you multiple entries for your review, based on the matching algorithm. Nicknames are included in the algorithm. In these PDIs, sample patient has multiple addresses. You can also see sample patient is listed with a variation in their date of birth. These are examples of dispensing information with variations that may or may not be red flags based on the circumstances. For instance, did the patient move? Was there a typographical key punch error by the dispenser? Or was the misinformation intentional on the part of the patient? Some other areas of possible concern on the confidential drug utilization report screen might be duplicate or overlapping prescriptions for the same medication. A medication paid for by cash that would normally be billed to an insurance company, or a patient going to multiple pharmacies to obtain their medications. Things you might consider in the event of multiple prescriptions for the same medication. Was one an extended release formulation and another for a breakthrough event? Were they written by the same or different prescribers? Are they the same medication written by multiple prescribers and the day supplies would be overlapping? When a medication is paid for by cash, does the patient normally pay cash? Was the medication not covered by their insurance company? Did the patient pay cash to circumvent the insurance company's tracking of that particular medication? For multiple pharmacies, did the patient's primary pharmacy not have their medication in stock? Did they go to a different pharmacy as an attempt to obtain multiple dispensings of the same medication? These different scenarios are areas to consider when prescribing or dispensing. It is important to note that the PMP is a tool and professional judgment remains with the practitioner. Below the patient's history is the Search Other States button. Clicking on this will allow you to choose how you would like to search the PMPs for other states related to your patient's controlled substance history. It is possible to select all states that share data with New York. You can select neighboring states or select desired states individually, such as the states of Connecticut, Minnesota, and New Jersey. Not all states are interoperable with each other. New York State only shares PMP data with states based on legal agreements between New York and the other states. Practitioners in New York State are required to perform searches of the New York State PMP prior to consulting other states' PMPs. This satisfies the New York State practitioner's duty to consult mandate. Review of other states' PMP data by a prescriber is not mandatory. Practitioners or users/designees in New York may or may not have access to view other states' PMP data, and that access depends on what access is legally allowed in the other states. For example, some states may not allow a designee or pharmacist access. Another example would be law enforcement. Since law enforcement does not have access to the PMP in New York State, law enforcement from other states cannot look at our data, even if they had access in their own state. This is a drug utilization report with some of the messages that might be displayed in a multi-state search. New Jersey shows that there was an error encountered. This may be a system issue with the New Jersey PMP. BNE does monitor what is going back and forth and notifies other states if they appear to be having any problems with their system returning errors. Connecticut is displaying that the searcher does not have permission to view their data. A designee searching a state that does not allow designee searches is an example of why this message might be generated. For Minnesota, there are no search results, so there are no dispensed controlled substance prescriptions in Minnesota for this person. In the event that you consider a patient's activity to be of a suspicious nature, there is an obligation to report this to the Bureau of Narcotic Enforcement. Utilizing the Report Suspicious Activity button will bring you to a form where you can document your concerns. Each form has a report number automatically assigned to it. In the text box of the form, provide details and a description of the area of concern for this patient. When you hit send, it will come directly to the Bureau, and each report is reviewed by Bureau investigators. The practitioner or pharmacist may or may not be contacted for further information depending on the nature of the investigation. Other helpful buttons on the confidential drug utilization screen allow you to send a question or comment or to access substance abuse treatment information through the Office of Addiction Services and Supports website. The Designation tab enables a practitioner or pharmacist to authorize a designee to consult the PMP on their behalf. The designee must be located in the state of New York when accessing the PMP. The designee must be employed by the same professional practice or pharmacy or is under contract with the same professional practice or pharmacy. The designee of a practitioner does not have to be licensed. Pharmacists may designate another pharmacist or pharmacy intern to search the PMP on their behalf. Pharmacy technicians and other pharmacy employees are prohibited from access to the PMP registry. The practitioner or pharmacist is responsible for their designee's access to the PMP and ensures that the designee uses the PMP for authorized purposes only and that the patient confidentiality is protected. Upon a designee's termination of employment or authorization as a designee, the practitioner or pharmacist shall revoke the designee's authorization to access the PMP registry on their behalf. A practitioner must take reasonable steps to ensure their designee is knowledgeable and competent in the use of the PMP and that they conform to all relevant federal and state privacy statutes. The ultimate decision as to whether or not to prescribe or dispense a controlled substance remains with the practitioner, who is reasonably informed by the relevant controlled substance history information obtained from the registry. To assign a designee, practitioners and designees must have their own individual Health Commerce System, or HCS, account. When the designee performs a search, they will access the PMP registry using their own HCS account and enter the registry on behalf of the practitioner or pharmacist. The patient searches on the practitioner's account and the designee's account will be displayed in the same manner. Remember, when searching other states, a designee may not be allowed to search due to PMP restrictions placed on designees by other states. If the designee does not currently have an HCS account, one can be obtained online through the Health Commerce System site. After navigating to the HCS login screen, utilizing the link shown on the screen, select Sign Up Here. Once the designee has their own HCS account, the practitioner can then assign them to search the PMP on their behalf. For a prescriber to assign the designee to search the PMP on their behalf, it will be necessary to know the designee's HCS ID, but not their password. Those should never be shared. From their own practitioner account, the designee can be assigned to the prescriber by clicking on Designation located on the toolbar. On this screen, enter the designee's HCS ID and hit Search. A successful search will bring up a box displaying both the HCS ID and the name of the designee. Once Designate is pressed, that individual will be assigned to you as a designee for searching the PMP, and their name will appear in the Review Designees section. For a pharmacist to assign a designee, it is necessary to know the designee's HCS ID and also the permit number of a pharmacy intern or the license number if designating another pharmacist. After entering the HCS ID, the area for a pharmacy intern's permit number can be used to enter a permit number or the license number of another registered pharmacist. Click Search, and if the information matches, click Designate. In order to search for a patient, the designee must go to the top box entitled Searching on Behalf of and choose the practitioner or pharmacist they are searching for from the drop-down menu. Next, they can enter the first name, last name, and date of birth of the patient. By clicking on Yes, they are attesting that they are searching the individual's PMP record in accordance with New York State public health law, keeping in mind that a person's controlled substance history should only be searched by a patient the prescriber is treating or for a patient whose prescription the pharmacist is currently filling. Because you are responsible for searches performed by a designee, it is important to remove a designee once they are no longer authorized to check the PMP on your behalf. Select Designation in the toolbar and scroll to the Review Designees area. You will see a list of your previously assigned designees. Click on the red button next to the designee's name in the Review Designees area. Once you click OK, that designee will no longer be able to search on your behalf. You will still be able to review the searches previously made by that designee in the report area for the time that they were assigned to you. Note, it is possible for a designee to remove themselves, but they cannot re-add themselves. Only the practitioner can do that. Another way to run patient searches is the multi-patient search option. This feature makes it possible to check the history of up to 30 patients at one time and may be utilized by practitioners or a designee authorized to consult the registry on the practitioner's behalf. These reports can be run ahead of time, if this is more convenient, as long as it is within the 24 hours before a controlled substance prescription is issued. The names of the patients being searched can be uploaded as a CSV file or manually entered. As stated before, in order for a designee to do a patient search, they must go to the box entitled Searching on Behalf of and choose the practitioner they are searching for. The confidential drug utilization reports for all patients searched will display and may be reviewed by scrolling down. The results generated are separated by patient. You can also customize the confidential drug utilization report by adding your DEA number by clicking My DEA Number on the purple toolbar that is present on the various screens of the PMP registry. Adding your DEA number into the Prescription Monitoring Program registry will allow you to see the controlled substances that you have written separately from those written by others. Once you have clicked on the link, type your DEA number into the space provided, keeping in mind that the entry is case sensitive, and click Add. The information will now be visible in the Review DEA Numbers section. Repeat the same process again if you have more than one DEA number. A number may be removed from your PMP profile by clicking on the red Remove button corresponding to that number. This step does not need to be done every time you go into the PMP. Once you have added a DEA number the first time, it will remain tied to your HCS account. Now that we have added a DEA number, let's go back and review a confidential drug utilization report again and see how the view changes to display your prescriptions for the patient versus prescriptions written by other practitioners. The top example shows a confidential drug utilization report, also known as a CDUR, as displayed when the searcher does not have a DEA number entered in the My DEA Number area. In the lower example, we see that once the practitioner's DEA number has been added, the CDUR displays a column titled My RX. Prescriptions written by the searching practitioner or a designee searching on behalf of that practitioner will display a Y in the My RX column. Prescriptions written by a different practitioner will display an N. Now let's review the PMP history reports available to practitioners and pharmacists. Listed on the toolbar is Reports. The reports displayed will vary depending on whether the user is a pharmacist or a practitioner and based on their role within the PMP registry. A practitioner will have three options, as shown here: My Prescription History, My Search History, and My Designee's Search History, while a pharmacist will be limited to just My Search History and My Designee's Search History. A practitioner can check the history of the dispensed controlled substance prescriptions attached to their DEA number by clicking on My Prescription History. This will bring up a search box. You can use the default date or enter a specific date range and then click Search. The results will be listed in a section below. Up to 500 rows will be displayed for the time frame searched, and the search can display up to 5 years of history. Because only 500 rows are displayed in a search, you may need to narrow the date criteria and pull multiple reports to obtain a complete 5-year history. To do a query of the PMP searches that you have performed as a practitioner, click on My Search History. Enter the date range you wish to search and whether you would like to search all states, New York State only, or other states only. Then click Search. The results will be displayed in chronological order at the bottom of the page. The last report to review is My Designee's Search History. The practitioner, whether they are a prescriber or a pharmacist, is responsible for the searches done by their designee. To view what your designee has searched on your behalf, click on My Designee's Search History. This will bring up the search box where you can enter the search date range. Enter the time frame you would like to search, then use the drop-down menu to select all or a specific designee whose searches you wish to monitor. Choose whether to run the search for all states, New York State only, or other states only. After hitting Search, the results will appear at the bottom of the screen in chronological order. The Drug Listings tab provides a resource of controlled substances which are displayed in the PMP. These are the most common, if not all, of the drugs that are scheduled in New York State, what controlled substance schedule they are in, and whether they are refillable or not. In addition, BNE added a morphine milligram equivalent calculator for use within the PMP as an application to calculate MMEs. The calculator can be accessed from any PMP registry page from the toolbar. Once inside the application, there is a drop-down list to select the opioid medication. Then filling in the strength per dose for each medication will lead to the total daily MME dose displaying at the top of the calculator. One of the original enhancements to the PMP was to redesign the way it displayed on smaller devices to make it mobile-friendly. What we found was that there was a 151% increase in mobile traffic when comparing the 60 days prior to the mobile-friendly PMP launch to the 60 days post-launch. Now let's discuss the reporting of data to the New York State PMP. Reporting requirements. Article 33 of the Public Health Law and Part 80 of Title 10 New York Codes, Rules, and Regulations require all dispensers registered in New York State to electronically submit dispensing data for controlled substance prescriptions in Schedules 2 through 5 to the New York State Department of Health. The dispensing data, which populate the Prescription Monitoring Program Registry, or PMP, are reported from pharmacies and dispensing practitioners. All veterinary dispensing data are excluded from the PMP registry display. A key point of the reporting requirements is that electronic filing of prescription information is the responsibility of every dispenser. If no dispensing of a controlled substance has occurred by a pharmacy or a dispensing practitioner with a DEA registration, then a zero report must be submitted. Again, a zero report must be submitted for any and all dates during which controlled substances were not dispensed. Dates on which controlled substances were not dispensed must be reported within 14 days. Dispensing practitioners and pharmacies that are only dispensing non-controlled substances, or an out-of-state pharmacy that does not dispense controlled substances in New York, can apply for a zero reporting waiver. Specific information regarding the zero reporting process can be found in Chapter 4 and Appendix C of the Submitter's Guide to Electronic Data Transmission, found on the Bureau of Narcotic Enforcement website. Access to the PMP data collection tool is needed for reporting and monitoring submissions of controlled substance prescription data. Each person who will be reporting or reviewing controlled substance prescription data will need to establish an individual Health Commerce System, or HCS, account. After the HCS account is established, dispensing practitioners must register their medical or veterinary practice with the Health Commerce System. For practitioners, this will establish their role as HCS director for their organization and will allow them to assign to themselves and or other staff the appropriate roles to submit or review their data. After individual pharmacy users establish their accounts, BNE will initiate the process to associate the owner and or supervising pharmacist user IDs to their pharmacy as an HCS director. As with practitioners, this will establish their role as HCS director for their pharmacy and will allow them to assign to themselves and or other staff the appropriate roles to submit or review their data. Data submission. Data submission can be done through one of two platforms: the PMP data collection tool on the Health Commerce System, or Universal Public Health Node, or UPHN Lite, which is a New York State Department of Health developed client software that runs on the submitter's Microsoft Windows operating system. There are three processes through which data can be electronically submitted: manual entry using the PMP data collection tool, manual file upload using the PMP data collection tool, or unattended file upload through UPHN Lite client software. Electronic submissions must adhere to the American Society for Automation in Pharmacy, or ASAP, specifications version 4.2 or later for reporting. In addition to the ASAP specifications, New York State has some specific rules and edits for reporting. These can be found in the Submitter's Guide to Electronic Data Transmission, which is located on the BNE website. Details are found in Appendix A, Data File Specifications, and in Appendix C, Zero Reporting Specifications. Some important points regarding reporting frequencies. Dispensers must submit information regarding dispensed controlled substances to the Department of Health within 24 hours from the time the medication leaves the pharmacy. If the file shows as rejected, review the reason that appears on the screen, address the reason for rejection, and resubmit within those 24 hours. Pharmacies delivering prescriptions by mail or licensed express delivery services are required to file prescription information no later than 72 hours after the medication was shipped from the pharmacy. The submitting pharmacy provider and dispensing practitioner are responsible for correcting any errors and resending the information within 3 days. All data submissions are audited by the New York State Department of Health for compliance, and data files that do not meet minimum requirements will be rejected. The submitting entity will be provided with the reason for the rejection of an incorrectly formatted file. Records on an accepted file that do not comply with New York State requirements will generate an error. Rejected file data and errored records on an accepted file will not be displayed in the PMP registry until corrected and resubmitted. It's important to note that the rejected file should be corrected and resent immediately by the submitter. If the file was successfully submitted, but errors occurred on any individual records, those errors should be corrected by the dispenser within 3 days. Prompt error correction ensures that providers see current and complete data when searching the PMP registry. As a reminder, a user must have a controlled substance prescription data submitter role in the HCS in order to enter or upload data. Submission status. In order to ensure that complete and accurate controlled substance prescription data appears in the PMP registry, dispensers must regularly check the status of their data submissions to the New York State Department of Health, or NYSDOH. This includes dispensers who employ a software vendor to submit their data. The dispenser is ultimately responsible for checking the status in the PMP data collection tool and making any necessary corrections. Failure of a dispenser to electronically submit information regarding dispensed controlled substances to the Department of Health is a violation of public health law and corresponding regulations and may result in enforcement action and/or the levying of fines. Dispensers who use a software service for submitting their data to New York State are still responsible for data accuracy and compliance with the laws and regulations around reporting. The dispenser is ultimately responsible for ensuring any and all data corrections are made in a timely fashion. In addition to this training, BNE has also posted short instructional tutorials covering specific PMP topics on the landing page of our website. When accessing the videos from our public website, it is necessary to sign into a Health Commerce System account. There are also links to several data submission tutorials on this page. Resources. These are helpful links that are on BNE's webpage. The top one is dedicated to the PMP information, including important updates, instructional videos, and other information. Below that is a link to the PMP Data Collection Submitter's Guide, which was referenced throughout this presentation. Here is a link to the websites for OASIS and SAMHSA, where you can find information on the treatment of substance use disorder, or SUD. The New York State Office of Addiction Services and Supports is doing a lot in the area of treatment for SUD, and SAMHSA is a federal partner for SUD resources. This is our contact information at the Bureau of Narcotic Enforcement. On behalf of the Bureau of Narcotic Enforcement and the UB Office of Continuing Pharmacy Education, we thank you for participating in this program.